So hey y'all, and welcome to Crossroad Conversation. So this is somewhat of our inaugural conversation. I'm excited about today because we are going to be having a conversation about something called the theology of work. So not to belabor time, y'all know the drill. As y'all come in, let somebody else know that we are live and we are here. But I'm going to bring up my guest. And we are going to get started because we need to get started. So I'm bringing in my guest, and this is Bishop Shawn Mason the second. This particular conversation, if you read the captions of the post, we're having a conversation about the theology of work. If I can fix my design, so I'm my own tech person today. Y'all be with me, okay? It's gonna be all right. I'll make sure everybody's name is under the right person. Here we go. Okay. So this conversation is going to be about the theology of work. This conversation is important to me because the work that we do in the ministry and marketplace side, a lot of times we separate work and worship. We separate, like, I go to church, I go to work, I go to work, I go to church. And I met Bishop Mason about 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. 2019 was the year. Okay. So whatever that is in numbers. And I was inquisitive about the work that he did in adjutancy and like what that stuff was. And the answer that he gave me when I was asking questions, because I ask a lot of questions, if you know me, you know that's be a thing, was an answer that really framed it different for me. And he talked a little bit about the pageantry of heaven and all these things. So I won't make him unpack all that today. But it stuck out to me that he was one of the first people that I met whose vocation was worship, like in its purest sense. It's an echo. You know, headphones on? I feel like there's echo. For me, it's still. Let me know if y'all can. It's just me. So let me know if you that. So he was actual like was in as about what it is. Move through when faith meets strategy, ministry marketplace conversations, etc. Echo gone good. Ministry marketplace conversations, etc. The idea of work as worship keeps resurfacing for me. And so I wanted to have this conversation. I thought he'd be the perfect person to have it with. He's also the longest living member and attendee of When Faith Meets Strategy. He's literally been to every event since its inception, I think. Well, the first year we had the same event twice. So technically he was there at the second one by association, but he's been to every event that we've had. And so he also has like a really, really good view of its growth, its evolution, its progress or lack thereof. Right. So we'll talk about those things. So I did prepare real questions, but I'm gonna pause here. Do you want to intro yourself in, or do you want to go right to the questions?
Hi guys, I'm Shawn. My name is Shawn Mason. I am the senior pastor of the Freedom Church in Brooklyn, New York, and excited to be here.
Okay. So I also happen to attend the Freedom Church. If you're in Brooklyn, pull up on us, okay? Okay. So as I stated, he's the person that's been there since the beginning. So I wanted to ask first question, like, what are your thoughts about the evolution of When Faith Meets Strategy from the first time you came to what it's become now?
When Faith Meets Strategy is a tremendous resource and a tremendous experience. Our first time visiting a WFMS event, it was like a mega conference in like a smaller package, but in like a good way. It was the content was amazing. The panelists were great. It was a tremendous experience, and then to see the growth and see the way it's been able to move outside of New York, outside of the tri-state region, and to be brought to different places and spaces it's cool to watch. It's like, you know, when you see like a kid that you knew when they were like a baby, and then they grow up, and then you leave it, and you come back and see them. I remember you and you was, and they like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it's great to see the growth and the development and the maturation of Faith Meets Strategy.
And so you started out as an attendee, and now you're like part of the event. And a really, really important part of the event. So for those of y'all who know me in real life, I do microphone for about a good minute, but like I'm not good with the other stuff, like the structural stuff, the engagement stuff. And so Bishop Mason, also known as Shawn, since he called himself Shawn when he came on here, has been really willing to like step in and kind of help glue it together and glue the pieces together and move. So what made you willing to, I guess other than me asking, but like what made you be like, yeah, I'll put my face on this flyer or I'll be a part of this in a greater way?
Um, Seeing what it's done for different ministries. So when you know, all right, I use this as an example. It was a product called It Works, right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of people that was selling It Works, it wasn't really working for them. And they were peddling It Works, and they were, you know, all right. So, but to see that idea go from ideation and being able to take those practical tools and put it into practice in my personal ministry and within my local assembly that I serve in, um, that made me buy into it. And so when you're buying into something where you know has documented proof to it, has like the results that fit it. It just doesn't sound good. It's not just talking a good game, but putting some of those strategies and plans into motion, seeing how it could benefit different churches, made me okay to add my name to that and to be a part of that group.
Stuff. So let's get into the topic because they like this was somebody said it was a good topic. And I hate when people bring me on alive and then talk to me about everything else for 2 hours. So, the topic of mastery. So, if you were defining mastery, and the reason also Bishop Mason's going to be speaking at the event, and so this is the area that he's going to unpack for us and talk to us a little bit about work as worship at the event. But when we think about mastery or like our work, our vocation, and mastering our vocations, what does that mean to you, or how would you define that?
Um, I think, or in my own words,
Yes.
mastery can be labeled as having proficiency in a given area. Um, it is the ability and the experience to show results and to show what you can actually produce. So I think it goes a little bit more than being proficient. So you can be proficient in something and not master it, or you could be a beginner in something and not master it. So mastery goes beyond proficiency. Proficiency is you know how to do it, but mastery is you kind of own it to some degree.
And so if you had to think about the idea then of like our mastery or like our work being a form of worship. And I actually researched it. It's something literally called the theology of work. And it's not necessarily a popular conversation. It's really
Mm.
more marketplace managed. But with understanding like our work as worship, do you agree with the fact that our work is worship, or like how does our work connect to worship in a sense?
I think if I could speak to the disconnect first, I think there's a
Sure.
disconnect that we have where we have Jesus and then we leave Jesus on our pew on Sunday and then we go live life and then we may go to Bible study or we may pray here and there, but Jesus is compartmentalized. So I think if we look at Jesus as a part of our everyday life and in regard to work, where the Bible speaks to doing everything as unto the Lord. So not just shouting and dancing, not just when I give tithes, not just when I preach in the setting or context of a corporate worship setting, but when my life is worship. Everything I do, if I do it in a spirit of excellence, it points to or allows people to point to how are you able to do this? How are you able to succeed in this area? How do you have this favor? So doing everything is unto the Lord. So everything, so at my work, I'm worshiping. I'm not speaking in tongues like, no, no, no. But I'm working and working well. And because I'm showing God that I'm grateful for what He's given to me, I'm grateful for what He has allowed me to do. So it speaks to using every part of your life as an act of worship. Breathing is worship. The way you manage your money is worship. What you choose to consume, the way you move, the way you treat people, it is an act of worship because it really mirrors your theology. When I think about God, a lot of times translates to how I think about myself. How I think about myself translates to how I think and treat other people. So it's all interconnected. So we can't really separate it. It's all interconnected.
So can you talk to us a little bit about what you do. So I know like you do stuff. So when I say what you do, I know you do multiple things.
Mhm.
But I guess the area when I think of you as in the place of mastery, I think about adjacency, I think about protocol.
Mhm.
Does that feel like worship to you? Like when you're operating in that space, does that feel like worship to you?
It feels like worship to me because it helps me to make worship happen to a certain degree. So I conduct worship. I use this often. Some people go to church to have church. Some people go to church to do church. I'm one of those people that help to facilitate church happening so where people can come and enjoy the presence of God. One of my jobs is to help facilitate an area where it's free from distraction, where things are aligned in a certain way to where uh, we're able to worship and function. So we help to make worship happen. The trustees help to make worship happen. The ushers, when you walk in, they help to make worship happen. The parking lot attendants, they help to make worship happen. All of these things are interconnected. So it really is when you deal with mastery. Now, it's a secular term, so some people get afraid of the term
Mhm.
mastery. Um, uh, Safe to say it's seasoned. I'm a seasoned adjutant. I'm a seasoned churchgoer. So I know how to make church happen. I could do that with my eyes closed. I could be on autopilot and make it happen. But it is a thing I believe I'm gifted to do. I believe that we all have a different calling. Some people are gifted with the ministry of help. Some people are gifted with singing. Some people are gifted with the gift of faith, like where they have everybody got faith, but they got faith. I'm gifted in the area of helping to curate an experience to where worship to God can go forth and where miracles can take place.
Right. So if you had to connect that to um I feel like I'm trying to like not marry myself to this list, but if we had to like connect that to thinking about the marketplace placement, right? So as you're engaging, I'm not gonna say more in the marketplace. Like I feel like as long as I've known you, you've
Mm,
been
I've worked.
yeah, you work. You have something to do. But in thinking about adjutancy specifically, or like the area that you have specifically mastered, because the truth is, some of us, if we be honest, the area that we like love and like live in is not necessarily where we've always been able
True.
to earn our income, right? So in thinking about like areas of the adjutancy and that facilitating and curating and all that stuff, have you been able to see placement of that or prepared you in any way for marketplace success or placement of that in the marketplace?
Church in general has prepared you for a lot of things. Church prepares you for public speaking. Church prepares you for how to dress appropriately for the right situation, particularly if you're coming from a Black church Pentecostal context. It prepares you for how to listen to leadership, and not so much in a blind obedience, because there's some slave culture in that where you just whatever the man say, it is what it is. But it did help me to follow the leader even when I disagreed with the leader. Because a lot of times what you do at church, you're not going to do at work.
Mhm.
So church kind of, growing up in the era that I grew up in, it helped me to work on the marketplace side, particularly as it pertains to public speaking. I am a naturally shy person. I'm an introvert. A lot of people do not believe me, but I am an introverted person. I'm naturally shy. So I realize I'm gifted to communicate to a certain degree, because it's helped me church wise and in the marketplace to speak to some people who are starting businesses or who are already up and running. And because there's some skills that are transferable, there are some experiences that are transferable. Running a church is very similar to running a business. Now, the end game is
Say that again. Can you just
running
repeat
a
it?
church is very similar to running a business. You may not have to deal with 100% of paid employees, but you're dealing with volunteers who are investing to a certain degree into that ministry. So in dealing with people, you deal with personalities, you deal with feelings, you deal with finances, you deal with schedules, you deal with personnel, you deal with moral issues, you deal with correction. There's several different areas. And if you're aligned with somebody, then not only are you a boss to a certain degree, you also have a boss. So there's other people you are accountable to. So having that church experience, the church context, has really helped me. So I've been allowed to use um, but let's use the adjutancy per se. Um, Using those skills and tools in the adjutancy has allowed me to teach leadership development in other spaces. So it sounds eerily similar. So I really believe that what you do or what you have done is really practice for where God is taking you. Not that where you are from doesn't matter, and not that where you're going is better, but God is showing you you are usable in church and outside of church.
Yeah. I love that you said that piece. And I don't want to be that person like, can you harp right there? Because there's a point that I want to make. But I do think that a lot of times, and I will own it, that so I came out of church, but I left church salty. So when you leave a place salty, everything gonna be salty. Like everything you
Right.
look at, everything you engage is gonna be whatever. So I went to the marketplace side and I did a lot of comparing
Mm-hmm.
of like it would be better if they just right. So that was like a thing. Like there were these two separate, and then I had to build my own business and pay people and hear people complain that you are like flipping yourself inside out to make sure these people are good, and they complain about like I had to like nurture that piece because I had been an employee in the marketplace, which was very
Yeah.
different than being an employer in the marketplace, right?
Right.
So there was that perspective, and then plot twist, God is like, now get back over here, right? And so um I have a different viewpoint on church and on what leaders and stuff go through. I think sometimes, if I be honest, I think that pastors sometimes shortchange themselves because I think every pastor is an entrepreneur, in my opinion. You're starting
Mm-hmm.
something, you're growing it, you're responsible for marketing it, you got bigger risk than everybody else. Most of the time, you're funding it out of your own pocket until you get other
Mm-hmm.
pockets to fund it by. So it literally is the entrepreneurial journey, just
Mm-hmm.
in a different context. And I sometimes even will argue harder because volunteering is optional. If I'm tied to a paycheck, I may come to work if I need my check. If this is
Yeah.
purely because I felt
It's a
like
lot
it,
of risk there.
it's a
Yeah.
different risk, right? So I think, a lot of the work that when I've been sitting in that ministry marketplace conversation, it's I don't think anymore or as much as I did that it's them and them. I think that all ministries have marketplace components. And I think that
Yeah.
those of us that are believers, what we do in the marketplace should have ministry underpinnings. And I think if we look at it that way, then a lot more of what we do strategically is transferable because we're able to see it that way. But I definitely look at pastors now like you are running the business of a ministry
Yeah.
in a very specific way, and so there's space for that. So, um, what would I guess in thinking about like people attending when faith meets strategy and thinking about I can't see names, so I can see comments. You can't see comments. Let me see if I can put the comments in here. Because I can see the comments, but not the names. So I hear like, oh, Bishop is my cousin here, y'all. So I don't know who everybody is that's making the comments.
Hey,
So
cousin, whoever you are.
if you could drop your name, whoever said that part, because when you come in on the stream, depending on where you came in, it just says Facebook user or YouTube watcher, so we can't see the names. Kenich, oh, because y'all got the same last name. Okay, Kenicha's last name is Mason, so she said y'all cousins.
Hey, cuz.
We don't know Kenicha. So,
I'm taking it.
we're gonna take it for what it is. So in unpacking like that piece, can you talk a little bit in a safe way? Or what feels comfortable to you about what the business of ministry feels like in thinking about
It's
um
scary. It's
okay.
scary. It's because you. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
You
My bad.
jumped in, you was like, I was ready for that.
Yeah, I
That
was
one
ready
you
for that.
talked
Let me
about.
tell you something. To do ministry, you got to be called or crazy. To do pastoral ministry, you got to be called or crazy. And I want to say crazy. I know it's a mental health error, and you got to be careful using it. I don't mean, you know what I mean. You have to be called, or you got to be, you know,
Wild outside.
you got to be wild. Or to be a business owner, you got to be called to it because that's a calling in and of itself. You know, just because you want to do it, that doesn't mean you're graced to do it. Some people pastor because they have nothing else better to do. Some people pastor because they were a good preacher. So if I'm a good preacher, I could be a good pastor. They're not mutually exclusive. They're not one and the same. It is not. The business component is scary, particularly when you don't know um, if you're gonna make budget the next quarter. If and then with the era that we live in, people have so many ideas of what church should do, what church needs to be. We got to be the adoption agency. We the hospital. We the rehab center. We're job placement. We're the mentorship program. We're all of these things, and then you know we don't necessarily buy in or invest to make it those things. It's
Right.
not to say that the church shouldn't be that. We would love for the church to be that, but it takes the favor of God, and it also takes your generosity as well. So a lot of what makes church run is by the generosity of the people. It is by giving. I don't have a Rolls Royce. I don't have I don't have, and I'm not knocking those things. I'm not saying I don't ever have them in Jesus' name, but there's so many misunderstandings of the pastor taking the money, and they live. Why don't they just get? I have a job. I've always had a job. That's. So the scary part is not looking like one of those pastors, but also trying to make sure the needs are met. But then also trying to make sure you're not making it all about the money, but then still trying to make sure you help them understand it's a little bit about the money,
Yeah.
because you can't do no more ministry than you have money. You
Yeah.
can be anointed, you can prophesy, you can do all those things, but you need money. Money helps you. Money assists. So the business side is, it is a faith walk. It also leaves room for the necessity of strategy. So you have people on your team that can help you to gain other income that are not solely based upon the tithes and offerings. Because if you only as good as your Sunday to Sunday, you're in trouble. And then also trusting God that He will send people who are willing to invest. But then you got to give people something that's worthy of their investment. Beyond thanking Jesus, beyond a good bump. Is this worth my investment? People are more money conscious. There was an era where everybody went to church. It was a blind buy. They just went to church. They was going to church, and when they went to church, they were giving. This is not the same era.
Yeah.
It has to align with my values. It has to be an air of convenience to a certain degree, i.e., online church. It has to be. Does it? Is this church civically engaged? Is this church speaking to what my political slant may be? All of those things come in contact, and then people vote in one of two ways. They vote with their feet, and they vote with their money. When I say they vote by their feet, you know what they're engaged with by if they show up,
Right.
if they attend, whether online or in person. And then I'm learning to realize that the online church is as important as the church that's inside the building.
Yeah.
They are just as much members. They're investing, they're giving, they're sowing their time, sowing their money. They're telling people, they're cyber evangelists,
Mhm.
as many of us call them. They are vitally important, and then they vote with their money. What you value, you invest in. So it is imperative that the pastor and the leader understands that it is vitally important to have a business mind. And then if you don't have a business mind, you have to hire your weakness. But
Yeah.
when I mean hire or appoint or align with somebody who may be stronger, people who are stronger in that area than you may be, right? I like money, but I'm not a money man.
Right.
There's some people that don't know how to do church. I know how to do church. I know this. I know advocacy. There's some things that I know. So they bring me in because I know that. There's some people, they know money. They know how to take a dollar and make it stretch. They know how to write grants. They know how to, engage people to give and to so connect with your weakness. When you connect with your weakness, you double your strength.
And I just want to mention something because I think that there's certain things to me that like are important to put to bed. Dr. Connie is on here, amen. Okay, she's on my feet and finances.
Come on,
Mother's on a is she on a plane? What is
fill it
happening?
up,
But,
fill it up, Bishop.
but one or two things I want to mention because I saw things in the comments that
Morning, be
one,
good. Where you going?
listen, you better be on brand. You better have these brands alive.
Where's my
Okay.
shirt? Where's my shirt?
Um, two things I want to address. One, yeah, somebody wrote, it can be scary when your generosity is taken advantage of. Here's the thing that I'm learning, and I'm gonna be like as transparent. Like, um, Bishop Mason and I have not agreed on some approach things because I think I was carrying my feelings about how things should work, right? So it's easy sometimes to come in without fully understanding a culture and be like, I feel like it should work that way, right? There's some things that, like, because the risk is all his, I might be right, but he got the risk. So there has to be a willingness, right, for me to understand and appreciate the risk is all his if I'm wrong. And what there might be some hesitation around, right, to start doing things and making all these shifts because you had a good idea that I got to eat the risk of, right? On
Mhm.
the flip side, I think we penalize good people or good churches or good businesses all around, right? For the experiences we had with the bad ones. And I hold myself accountable and hold other people accountable to, if you got taken advantage of somewhere else, like, my bad for that. Also, however, align yourself somewhere where you're not taken advantage of. But it can't be these universal conversations. I don't like it when it's black business. I be nervous when it's like the black church. Like, there is no universal
Yeah,
predator, right? Like, people do predatory things no matter where or what system we're in. So we have to, like, I think the whole conversation for me about merging this is, it's not about qualifying or disqualifying. It's not me pointing blame, right? And again, some of this is evolution for me because I was hyper analytical and like picking the things, and all the things could work if everybody just did it this way. And the truth of the matter is, there are a lot of moving pieces. So when we talk about even money in church, we made it taboo because, yes, there was a pastor that
right.
drove the Rolls Royce. But the truth of the matter actually is, I come from people like my grandfather. When he passed away, they found checks that he never cashed because the church didn't have the money.
Mhm.
He was teaching at seminaries. They didn't have life insurances.
Right.
Doctors. Some of them people died because they couldn't go to the doctor because there was no insurance. Like, it's the things that we don't process. So I think it is understanding that, yes, there's no system in this world that I want to be a part of that I don't buy into. If I want the college that I graduated from to exist, I join alumni. I give money when they ask me to donate. If I want the lights of my block to be maintained, they pulling that out of my taxes. There's nothing in this world that I benefit from that I don't pour into. So I just feel like, as it relates to the church piece, find a place you can trust, but you
Yeah.
can't expect places to exist and continue to thrive and live if you don't care that they got rent too. I got to be mindful that my rent and the church rent got to be paid. I got to be mindful that I don't want to go to church with no lights on.
Because it just
I
doesn't
got to be
happen.
mindful.
I think sometimes, and I'm not saying it's the person
No,
that said that,
no, I don't know
but
who said it. I just said, like, as things
no, no,
pop
yeah,
up.
no, but like being taken advantage of is not fun. It is hurtful. It is discouraging. It is disheartening. It is messed up. So I completely get it, and that is a valid experience. I think we all can attest to have had some experience with, right? But like to Joy's point, finding your space where you know you're safe, your money is safe, your heart is safe, your mind is safe, your energy is safe, your effort is safe. All those things are safe. So it's doing that due diligence to find your space, and then some things we label as Black church issues or church issues are universal issues. You know, where we say, "Oh, nobody's going to church no more." No, no, people don't even want to go to work no more. Everybody wants remote work now. Like that. That's not like people don't want to work. Like they're not just not, or they'll say, oh, this why people don't go to church. They don't go to your church. They go to somebody's church. There's somebody's church. They're just not where you want them to be. So I think sometimes we label things and just dump everything all into one size fits all. It's all this one thing. But your funds are absolutely necessary and essential. So when I say generosity, generosity is the new word for giving, because every now and again we find new words, you know, to that better. Like I was on a flight, right, and so they weren't really saying turbulence. They were calling turbulence rough air, because turbulence has a certain connotation. So when you hear turbulence, people start like, oh my God, turbulence. You know, so we said we may experience some rough air. Okay. Even if you know what it is, you have a different result from turbulence. So now people are saying, you know, giving. Sometimes when you say giving, for some people, giving has a very interesting connotation. So now we say with your generosity, we're not trying to manipulate what it is, but instead we just giving where it almost seems transactional.
Mhm.
Generosity says, I'm doing this from my heart. Sometimes when we say giving, it may seem like it's an obligation or I'm being manipulated to give. But if I'm saying, your act of kindness and generosity, it is a matter of your heart. And then so you're finding a safe place to give. Thank you, Elder Christine. Freedom is good ground. It is a good space where we make full use of what is sown, because we're giving toward the future, we're giving toward the now. People are being blessed by it. So it's important that we understand that it's not a sin, it's not a bad thing. It's not, and I didn't mean to stay too long on this
No,
on
you
this point, but it is imperative that we understand that giving and generosity is an investment in what you believe in. Wherever your heart is, that's where your treasure is,
yeah.
essentially.
I guess I think I know I in my head it's also and we gonna move to the next question. But I also think a lot of the concept around the business of ministry and that marketplace piece, it does come back to fiscal sustainability, right?
Mhm.
I would love for a model for like we love a TD Jakes model where like, oh, people on staff that happens because of other things that happen in the front, right? So
Right.
even if we're talking about empowering our communities, like because I think church is a faith-based form of entrepreneurship to a degree. There is an offer, there is a connection to, right? These are not-for-profit organizations. I don't know why they can't be employers too, why our churches can't pay six-figure salaries. Like I think the things that we expect, but I know that what goes into making that happen. So I just feel like I don't think our churches should be poor and our communities be rich. Like I think there's a balance that can be
It's
had.
not it's not it's not, it's not an either or, it's an
Yeah.
and with.
Yeah, it's an and with. And I think those are components when we start thinking about sustainability. And even when we start thinking about, I'm believing as a believer, if we're going to get to a place as the church where we are not reliant on all the other systems of the world to keep us afloat, there does become a level of how are we thinking about insulating? How are we thinking about creating employment in these spaces? How are we thinking about for the people that, and I'm not going to get too heavy into these topics, but people like I'm on jobs and some of these diversity initiatives don't align with my belief systems and I don't want to deal with pronouns. Though that's your but then where are we creating jobs where you don't have
Right.
those constructs? So some of the sustainability that we're looking for in our communities, not both of just of color, but even our religious communities, will require us to think more through the lens of how we elevate our faith experiences. So I'm not we can move on because I don't want people to think I'm not about to take an offering. So everybody's safe on this particular
You
line.
know what? No, I'm playing.
Actually, the QR code. No, we're not. But again, these are conversations I'm forcing myself to have more in the spaces I've influenced because the other narrative is so loud, right? And so here's that. So um because we're talking about when faith meets strategy, and I'm starting to understand more and more that when faith meets strategy is not for everybody. I initially wanted everybody, bring me your tithe, your masses, yearning to be free. I've
No.
gotten really clear that I don't want your tithe or huddle masses. I want people that have a desire to lean in. So if you were to say from your perspective, your lens, who are the types of people that would best benefit from coming to a when faith meets strategy experience? Who would those people be?
And this may be generalized, but I think the people who are stuck between ideation and manifestation, those I think that's the core group. It is those people who have the vision, they just don't know what to do with it. They have the idea, they don't know how to package it properly. They have the thought, they just don't know how to roll it out. So I think that is the core group. Not somebody who's trying to sort out what they want to do, sort out what they've been called to. This ain't for you. There's something for you, but this, as Bishop Stewart said, this ain't that. This ain't that. You got to, like if you're an artist or you go to art school, there's a certain proficiency in art that you should have. You can't come into the Art Institute of New York drawing stick figures. No, so I think there is a necessity for you to have a thing, not for you to find a thing. So WFMS is for people who already have something that they've been working on, um, something that they've been toiling with. So there is a spectrum. So even with it being somewhat broad, there's a spectrum where it could be the person whose thing is up and running, their church, their business, their ministry is already up and running. They just are in a place called stuck and need to move to the next space, right? And it could be all the way backtracking to the people who have the thing, they wrote the vision, and they made it plain to them, but it's not plain to the people that's supposed to run. So the sessions of a favorite strategy can help those people who wrote the vision, but they need help with their penmanship, or they need to pivot from handwriting to typing. You see what I'm saying? So where the people who are supposed to run, because you gave you, I'm with you. You want me to run, but where am I taking this? I don't know where this letter is supposed to go. So those people who have written the vision, but need to help the vision make sense. So not just they can understand it, but for the people who need to run with it. So if you have people who are attached to your vision, and it may not even be, and I dare say, it may not even be for people you run a solo for that. There may be some personal mentorship things that Joy can do with you, but those sessions, if you already have a small team already, that's I think it deals with where you're able to unpack it for your small team, or you and your small team can come and y'all can be on this journey together, and you unpack it together, right? So your vision starts to make sense to them, because a lot of times they don't see what you saw because they didn't hear what you heard. So now, if we're in a space where we're understanding it and processing it together, I think it works. So it deals with those who have a vision but don't know the how. They know the what. They even know the who. They are stuck with that how. Or the people who are they know the what, they know the who, they know their why, but the next phase of how is what's troubling them. That's what faith and strategy is for, or who and faith and strategy is for.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. Because I'll be like, and I think, when we process through, then that includes whether you're directly pointed in ministry or marketplace. It works in both ways. And I think at the last event we saw it the most, on
Mhm.
the strategy day, where there was synergy because we had like a pastor get up talking about coaching. And we had like a marketing person that does not necessarily do ministry at all, but she started talking about like marketing strategy. So you watched people like converge in the room. So your marketing strategy wasn't necessarily just even coming from me. There was a whole
Mhm.
marketer that got billboards up in, in like Times Square area, that was there talking through how she's done 7-figure launches with her clients, right? And kind of sharing her insight. So I think that's also a component where I really pray, that in my head, the kings and the prophets need to be together, right? So those that are operating in one space, we need to hear what God is saying. I'm going out there all the time, but I don't necessarily always hear what God is saying clearly. I'm in here, right? But I need to know I can intercede, I can give insight into what's going on out there. I may be in both, right? But I definitely think there's a space for synergy and collaboration. So if you're interested in coming, I'm going to put up the registration link, supposed to be at the bottom. It's the crossroad.info. The information is there. The hotel room block, if you're coming from out of state, is May 2nd through the 4th. My forte is not hard selling. So this is an offer. If you want to join us, join us. I'll bring on Dr. Connie. She's going to convince y'all to take some other type of action. But for me, it is, I like soft offers, right? So if it's something that you want to be a part of, join us. Bishop Mason will be speaking. Bishop Stewart, I vacillate between Dr. Connie and Bishop Stewart, depending on where you find me. But she is going to be talking to us about faith. Minister Kobe A. Brown is going to be talking to us about altars before action. So how do we really align our worship and faith life with what it is that we produce? And then Prophet Jones is coming in Friday night to talk to us about Occupy Till I Come. Saturday is a strategy day. So Saturday we are going to execute. We had people leave the last event. Elder Boudreaux started his transportation company. Rebecca Gordon gave us a testimonial on how she ended up going to London and other things just from executing things that we shared in the room. So there is a place to not just take notes, but to actually get results. So my ask to all of the people that have graciously said that they will come on here, Bishop Mason just happened to be the first person to say yes, was to ask me back. I don't know if you saw that part, but a question that you think that the audience may have for me. If y'all have questions, also audience, you can drop them in the chat. But oftentimes, if I'm not prompted, I don't necessarily know what to say. So I did ask like our guests if there was a question or something that they thought would highlight something that the audience needed to know or hear that I wasn't thinking of, if they could ask me back a question. So did you have a question?
I would ask, all right, given you've seen you dealt with faith and strategy since 2019,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see with Faith and Strategy in 2029.
Really? I should have made you run these questions. No. Next time I need these questions in advance. No. Um, so I'll stay on the so I don't know about numbers. If I be honest, I've struggled with the idea of whether this is a big thing or whether this is
Mm,
always an intimate setting, whether we're always at 50 to 100 people where we can really have high touch, high engagement. So I don't know. So, some people are like, I see the arena. I don't know that I see the arena, right? For
mm,
engagement strategy specifically. I do believe that it'll actually be a bridge event where we really kind of break down some of the silos and really start thinking like a church, like a body jointly fit,
mm,
operating together. And so it's not us versus them. It is not panel discussions where we wag our finger at each other and talk about what we should have done. It's really a place where people come to hear from God about what is happening to the collective body, the ecclesia, right? Like what is happening. And we
mm,
actually think through and executing how do we then effectively move forward. Um, I'm struggling because I want to say kingdom agenda, but then Bishop Daniel said we don't build a kingdom, and I'm still in my ideologies, right? So, but I did go back and look at like that word ecclesia. There are two words for church. One references like the actual called out ones. One references like the place, the sacred
mm.
place of worship. And I do believe the ecclesia, like the church of God, exists both in every realm. You look at Daniel, you look at Joseph, they operated in different realms. Daniel actually gets pulled out of, right, and put into Babylon. Nehemiah leaves Persia and goes back. So there's like this commingling. So in my mind, by
Right.
2029, I would love for it to be even the way the UN meets or the way like people come together. I would love it to be like a space where people that are leading in industry and leading in ministry and leading in those spheres come together and really think through what is the goal of the church, what is the mission of the
Mm,
ecclesia, how are we operating and executing what God is giving us. But I really always want it to be a place where we start with hearing from God, like God, what are you saying, and
got you.
how are we the arms and legs of your vision? Because it gets easy to be so visionary that we forget that our visions are really pieces of his vision. Like he's
Right.
downloading us many bites of what it is that he wants to produce in the earth. And so, you have a thing and I have a thing and all of us have a thing. But it really is in service of his desire and his goal, his kingdom come, his will be done. So I would love for it to be, or a component of it to be really like the thinking minds of our
Got you.
generation that are leading in those industries, really hearing from God, and being able to think about what are our marching orders for this quarter, this 6 month, this year, and really having greater influence in the areas that we're called to occupy, and in Babylon per se. Like we're not just in Babylon waiting for Babylon to feed us, but
Mm,
we're in Babylon really shifting culture and moving things forward.
got it. Spectacular. I understand.
We're working on conciseness and brevity in 2024. That was the unpack.
I
Um,
believe in you.
Are there any other questions in the chat? Any questions? I see some comments. Dr. Connie had said, do yourself and your team a favor and invest. I want to be mindful and respectful of time. Are there any questions in the comments? I'll look real fast. If not, we can wrap here. We'll be back. What you see?
I was reading comments. You got any glasses? I'm turning 40
Oh,
this year. June 26th, y'all. Shameless plug. June 26th. Those of you who
really?
are in the New York area, I'm gonna take this time. I'm gonna take this platform. Amen. June 26th. Wednesday, June 26th is a 40 and 7 gala. I'll be turning 40 years old, and the Freedom Church is turning 7 years old. So get your tickets. You can go on the Freedom Church's page, and you'll find information there. The Lord bless you. Thank you very much.
Buy your ticket
And
today.
thank you so much, Joy. Thank you so much, Joy, for this opportunity to share and to be a part of with Faith New Strategy, to see it from 2019 all the way to what it is now, and traveling in different spaces and different arenas. It is tremendous to see.
Dr. Connie said she missed you, so my mastery, she needs a recap. And do you have a shopper's code for Renzetti? You know what? The people on here,
All right, all right, all right. Now,
yeah. I did want to ask you. Dr. Connie says she does need a quick recap, and I don't know if she's letting off because she wrote it twice. If you give us a quick recap, but also what are you working on? So, like, where can people find you? What are you working on? What's coming down the pipeline? Where can we find you, hear you, see you?
you
Other
can
than
follow me at Shawn R Mason 2 on Instagram uh, and Facebook. Currently working on and finishing up a protocol manual entitled Practical Protocol. Entitled Practical Protocol. And you're gonna be invited to the party, Bishop. Don't you worry. It's a special seat just for you. It's entitled Practical Protocol. It is a look at, a lot of people know what protocol is with vestments and ceremony, and we get caught up in the pomp and circumstance, but it gives a practical approach to all of that to make it make sense, to make it something that local churches that may not be their thing or their strength can do. And so there's going to be some information about the pre-order and pre-sale. Those of you who pre-order will get a chapter release entitled Ceremonial Considerations. Ceremonial considerations. And it is, in a sense, a concise guide that helps you to put ceremony together without becoming overwhelmed by all of those things.
Okay, so Shawn R Mason too.
Mhm.
On social media platforms. You can hear him preaching live every Sunday, just about, at the Freedom Church at 1980 Fulton Street in Brooklyn, New York. And also, his book is coming out. So I'm really excited about producing and doing more things. And if there are no questions, let me make sure we don't skip none of Dr. She still says that she needs her recap. If can you do a 2-minute recap and then we are getting off this
You
one.
know the way my brain works, Bishop. Uh, um, in dealing with mastery, mastery supersedes proficiency. So proficiency essentially says you're really good in an area, but mastery says you've been so consumed in that task or in that experience that you move from just being good at it to being able to teach it. Some people can be good at doing something, but they cannot teach it. And so, in you teaching it, it's not just you, where they say those who can't teach, but in mastery, you're teaching from a proven track record. You're teaching from a track experience. And so, my mastery level, essentially, or my season level in church would be in the adjutancy, it would be in the ministry of protocol. It would be not just in having church, but being able to do church, where you move from just having the fun, for lack of a better phrase, or just caught up in the worship to where you help to make worship happen. You help to curate the worship. All of those things that people may forget. So mastery deals with experience. It deals with proof because there's a lot of people who call themselves experts with no experience, and or they're critics with no credentials. So you need both. So you need to know what to do, the how to do, and be able to teach it. And that's what separates the master, in a sense, from somebody who's just really good at it.
Good. And Apostle Ardina is on here, Johnson. I think out of
Bless
South.
your apostle.
So I do want to mention, I thought the adjutancy work was specifically for convocation season. Like we're doing a big event. But if you are at a church where you're like the day-to-day experience, my people don't know how to move and stand, we just out here. I think that freedom comes in structure. I think that freedom, the difference, I think the fine line between freedom and chaos is that we have clarity about role and structure, right? And so if you are saying, I have a ministry, I got people, I got a young church, I got people that, oh, everybody want to do something. Everybody want to be gifted and do something, but they don't necessarily know what to do, how to do it, and you don't have the time to teach every role. Bishop Mason would be a great person to bring in on a weekend, on a Friday, on a whatever, to just really help like structure some of your stuff, help you organize. Are your deacons deaconing? Like, what are people doing around altar work? Like, really thinking about how to administrate a worship experience that is not distracting for attendees. So if that is something that you need, reach out. If you don't remember how to get to his stuff, DM me, I'll forward it. But I see some people on here that I think could benefit. And so there we are. Dr. Connie has said his training is phenomenal and she
Oh,
knows
thank you,
this.
Bishop.
because he actually went and did training for them. So Minister Miriam is on, and she said amen. So we got some cosigns in the chat. Yeah, just reach out, and we're happy to make the connections. That's all. I thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you, Bishop Mason. I know you have things that you got to do, so I'm gonna thank you for coming and appreciate y'all. Grab y'all's tickets to the event. Tune in next Thursday. Dr. Connie is coming in to talk to us about faith that produces. So I'm excited about that. Dr. Connie said he messed Texas up. If you want your church messed up, bring in Bishop Mason. All right. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. We are logging off this. And conversation, Crossroad Conversations is now a thing, right? So it's like our inaugural launch of our conversation. So this will be happening past the event, but we're moving into the event with these conversations. All right, y'all. Y'all remember to have a dope day on purpose. And I'll see y'all on the next live. And let me make my screen larger so I can end it.